His words sent a thrill through her body. Summer caressed Colin's waist, revealing in her ability to give him such pleasure. She unzipped his jeans, and he stepped out of them. She stared at his naked body and imagined that she knew what Pygmalion felt as his sculpture of Galathes came to life. Calm and slow, Summer reminded herself as she pulled him down beside her on the bed. Focus on giving him pleasure. When his eager hands reached for her, she allowed Colin to pull her into his arms. Her mouth met his as she pressed her body against his nakedness, separated by only the thin cotton of her boxers and tank. It was an exquisite sensation to feel her heat warming him, her flesh bringing him alive. His hardness pressed low and insistent against the softness of her stomach. And while their tongues met, her hips shifted, bringing him fully against her core. He moaned against her mouth as she thrust against him, sliding him the length of her wetness. When her head started to spin, she broke the kiss, concentrating on controlling her breath and trying to find calmness within her again. She rolled over on top of Colin and held his wrist, settling his roving hands, which had been kneading her aching breast. "Let me touch you," she said, regaining her breath when he started to protest. She stilled his words with a kiss, then whispered against his mouth, "I don't want the magic to go away, Colin. Help me keep the magic. Sunshine, I've been trying to tell you that you are the magic." His voice was deep and rich with desire. "Humor me," Summer said with a smile, and then began to move down his body, kissing and caressing. When she reached his cock, she took him in both of her hands, loving the textures of him and the hardness, shielded in such soft skin. Still stroking him, she glanced up and met his gaze. "You are wrong, Colin. It's you who's magic." And then she bent and let her tongue flick out around the engorged head of his cock. He moaned her name as she licked the length of his shaft, discovering how exciting it was to be able to bring him such intense pleasure so easily. "Do you want me to take you in my mouth?" she asked huskily. "Oh, goddess, yes," he gasped. Summer swallowed him. He was too large for her to take all of him in her mouth, but she stroked his shaft with her hand, squeezing while she tasted him, loving how his cock heated the pulse beneath her tongue. She cupped his heavy testicles, and another moan was torn from his throat as his hips lifted to give her better access to him. "Your body is so beautiful," she murmured against his skin, teasing the head of his cock with her tongue. "I never knew a man's body could be so beautiful." Then she swallowed him again. "Summer," Colin gasped her name, his voice rough with barely controlled lust. "I can't stand much more. If you don't stop, I'm going to come in your mouth." Summer loved that she was evoking this response in him. She felt gorgeous and sexy and very much in control. Then, give in to it. She poured, imagining for the first time in her life that she was the Marilyn Monroe type, the kind of woman men dreamed about. "Give it to me." She licked his engorged head with her tongue, while she ran her hands down his thighs, feeling his muscles trembling and warm under her hands. Summer heard a ripping sound as his hands gripped the thick comforter while he shrugged to maintain balance. And then he moved with a vampire preternatural swiftness, and suddenly his hands were lifting her, and she was on her back, looking up to him. "Colin, wait. I need to do this my way." "Sunshine, Lovemaking is something best done together, rather than controlled by one. And I have to have my turn. She started to protest again, but the dark intensity in his gaze caught her. Trust me, Summer. Trust that I'm telling you the truth when I say that what's happening between us is more than an accident of magic. I trust you, she said softly. But I'm still going to stay in control, she added silently to herself. His smile had a sexy, feral glint as, with one flick of his powerful hands, he ripped the cotton tank off her. Colin cupped her breast, running his thumb lightly over her already sensitized nipples. She gasped and bit her bottom lip. Since I saw these beautiful nipples aroused and pressing against that sweet teacher's blouse you had on yesterday, I've thought about doing this over and over again. His head dipped down, and he took her nipples into his mouth, sucking and licking gently. She threaded her fingers through his thick dark hair and pressed him more firmly against her. Harder, she whispered, and then all her breath left her body in a rush as he went from the gentle and forceful to forceful, pulling on the nipple with his teeth, while he lifted his hard thigh between her legs so that her hips could lift and grind against him. Control, control, she reminded herself frantically. Summer breathed deeply, letting the pleasure wash in waves over her, but not allowing herself to drown in it. Colin shifted his attention to her other breast, and she closed her eyes, feeling the desire that was building inside of her, but keeping it banked just enough that it didn't engulf her. Then, his mouth followed the edge of her rib, caged down to the soft indentation of her wrist. He hooked his fingers in her shorts and quickly skimmed them off her body, leaving her naked before him. She felt a moment of embarrassment, but it passed when she saw the expression on his face and heard his husky, "Sunshine, you are even more exquisite than I dreamed you would be." He kissed her stomach reverently, gently before letting his hands glide down her body to cup her buttocks. He positioned himself between her legs as he lifted her to his mouth. Summer stopped breathing completely when his tongue patted her folds and dipped within. "You taste just like you smell, like sunlight and honey," he murmured against her intimately. When his tongue found her clit, her hips buckled against him. She squeezed her eyes closed, fighting against the cascade of pleasure. She wanted too badly to let loose, to allow him to make her come against his mouth. But what would happen then? How could she bear if she was suddenly transported mid-orgasm back to her cabin alone? Colin, come here to me," she said, reaching to pull him up to her. When he's only intensified his caresses, she added, "I have to feel you inside me." That got through to him, and he raised himself over her. She took him in her hands again, lifting her hips so that she could position the throbbing head of his cock against her wet opening. Summer was already getting her breathing back under control, and she'd keep that control while he spent himself inside her. At least, she hoped she could. Then Colin could turn her on was abundantly apparent. But being turned on and actually orgasming were two very different things. This would be for Colin. She would bring him light and life and love. She'd let him bring her a completion another time, when she was sure her emotions wouldn't cause their whole world to disappear. So, her plan was to take him inside her and just maintain her sanity this once. She'd worry about the next time. Everything would work out in the future when she, look at me, Summer. His voice brought her attention back to the present. She looked up into his expressive dark eyes. I want to look into your eyes when I love you, when I make you mine, he said. He thrust into her with one powerful plunge, filling her completely. Summer gasped as the pleasure spiked through her. Her hips lifted to meet his as her legs wrapped around him. Colin braced himself on one arm, raising up so that he could continue to look into her eyes. The vampire impaled her. They moved together, sleek and hot. Summer felt her body gathering itself, and she fought against it. Even though the pleasure was so intense that it bordered on pain. But she maintained control. She did it, until Colin reached between them and began rubbing his thumb rhythmically against her swollen, sleek clit. Colin, she gasped. Oh goddess, I can't. Shh, he whispered. What we have is beyond magic. If you trust me, give yourself completely to me. I can prove to you. Will you trust me? Yes, she said without hesitation. I trust you, Colin. Then I make you mine, truly and completely. He bent his head to her neck. Summer felt his lips, his tongue, and finally his teeth. At first, they just grazed her. Then she felt him gathered himself, and Colin beat her, puncturing through the soft skin above her pulsing vein. The pleasure she felt at his claiming was as sharp as the bite, and she couldn't fight against her desire any longer. Summer felt the wave begin within her and knew it would utterly, completely overwhelm her. She grasped Colin's shoulder, and for once in her life, completely gave up everything to a man, body and soul. As her body shuddered in orgasm, and he joined her in release, she felt the familiar tingle of her magic becoming active. This time, instead of running or bracing herself against it, or fighting it, Summer released her magic. Instead of choosing to hold on to Colin and his promise that there was more between them than smoke and mirrors. The flash of light against her closed lids had Summer opening her eyes in surprise. Colin jerked back from her neck, as if her blood suddenly burned, and then he was burning as the light that had been focused on Summer's hands surged from her into him. Colin, Summer cried, trying to pull away from him, trying to stop the transfer of light. Trust me, sunshine. Colin ground the words out between teeth clenched in pain. I accept any price I have to pay to be with you. It will not separate us. At his words, the light intensified until it bowed his body. The vampire screamed, and then he was knocked from the bed. He landed on the floor, limp and unconscious. Summer was sobbing when she rushed to him, touching his face, calling his name, praying to the goddess to please let him wake up. Please, she'd do anything. Just please, please. Colin drew a deep breath and then exhaled, coughing painfully. Summer helped him sit up. Colin, goddess, are you okay? I'm fine. His voice was raw, as if he hadn't spoken in centuries. I'm fine, he repeated. After clearing his throat, he started to take her in his arms, but suddenly froze. Blessed goddess. He sounded utterly shocked. What is it? Maybe I should call someone. A vampire doctor? Then Colin completely surprised Summer by jumping to his feet, throwing back his head, and laughing with uninhibited joy. Still on the floor, Summer looked up at him, utterly confused. Colin, was he hysterical? Is this how vampires acted when they'd been mortally wounded? I don't need a vampire doctor, Summer, my sunshine, my dream, my love. Somehow, some way, you and your magic had made me more human again. She stared at him, this time really seeing him. He was still a tall, handsome man, but the marble chest of his skin was gone. It had been replaced with a healthy flush of a living, breathing man, and she wasn't touching him at all. He was truly alive. It will go away, she whispered. It won't last. I think you are wrong, sunshine, he said, pulling her to her feet. Have you ever given up trying to control your magic before tonight? No, she said slowly. I've always fought it or ran from it. And it's not just my magic. I gave up control of tonight, Colin. It's my life. When I trusted you, I had to give up being in total control of myself. I think there was something about your decision to trust me that drastically affected your magic. Colin cupped her face. All these years, you've believed your magic was flawed, messed up. I don't think it was. I think it was pure light, the pure energy of sunshine. And when you gave me your complete trust, when you relinquished control, you also gave your magic to me. It should have killed you. You're a vampire. You can't stand the light. Perhaps, but I've never loved the light until I loved you. I desired it, coveted it, yearned for it, but never really loved it until you. So, my light didn't kill you. No, sunshine. Your light burned away the darkness of my past and saved me. So now you think we can make love and I can orgasm without worrying about you being zapped apart? Over and over again, sunshine, he said, smiling. Sounds like a perfect happily ever after to me. Me too, sunshine, me too. Colin took her back to bed, and as the certified disciplining's Jenny would say, ravished her thoroughly for many passion-filled, out-of-control years.